Good morning,
Hello, everybody.
everybody. There's no one yet.
Well,
we
hello
just like
anyway.
to we just like to pretend
Yeah, someone will watch
that
it.
yeah, hopefully we'll get some action in here today. It's 11 o'clock. Hopefully everyone should be awake by now.
Just about awake
Depends.
myself. Yeah,
Yeah. I know. I've been trying to wake up earlier every day so I can get have more of a day
yeah.
instead of more of a night. But you know.
Yeah.
Okay, well, for anyone who doesn't know us, I'm Lauren. Uh, I'm currently living in Bologna. I'm from the United States. I'm 28 years old. And I've been teaching for 2 years now.
Very nice. I'm Michael. I also work and teach in Bologna with Lauren. I'm originally from Ireland. I've been living here in Bologna since September, and I I'm not a very big reader.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because I'm not a very big reader either, or I haven't been, but I always have loved reading. Like when you get into a story and you start reading a book and it really it's really interesting or it really makes you want to read it. That's like one of the best feelings.
Yeah, I used to read a lot,
Mm.
but in the last couple of years, I don't know why I kind of stopped.
Yeah, it's hard to, I guess, find time. I don't know.
Mm.
I've been reading more recently in general because I've been trying to read before I go to bed. It's my new bedtime routine instead of watching TV or like
Definitely
staring at my
healthier.
cell phone. Yeah.
Yeah,
It helps me sleep better, I think.
I think so. Yeah, when you're not looking at a screen at night, it's meant to be good.
Well, especially now since we teach all day on the computer and
Mm.
then it's different when we're going into the school. It's not so bad. I mean, we use the TVs and it's kind of like looking at a screen, but we're not staring at it all day like we are
Yeah,
here now. So it's a little different. What about you, Michael? So you said you used to read,
I
but are
used
you
to, yeah,
reading more
read quite
now?
a bit. I said I would, but I haven't started yet.
Got it. Well, do you have any books
Yeah.
with you, like in
I
English?
I have a Kindle,
Ah, okay.
so I brought that with me. But when I first came over to Italy, I was reading something, but I never finished it, and I haven't read since.
Okay. I will
Do you
say
have any
so.
books?
Yeah, hi Concetta.
Hello.
I will say I bought an e-reader as well. It's not a Kindle, it's a different one.
Mm.
So the general term for them is an e-reader or an electronic reader.
What do you think of it compared to books?
I mean, I didn't want to do it. I didn't. Um, Sorry, I'm just trying to
When
edit
you're
this.
moving or traveling, though, it's so much easier. Like,
Exactly. So that's why I did it because also like being a student, I have textbooks with me and I like having those to study from and highlight and mark.
mm,
So I would rather have my pleasure books be something more portable rather than like my textbooks. So I do have some books around, but yeah, it's so difficult, Conchetta. Paper books they're amazing. I love the smell of
yeah,
paper books.
they're more satisfying as well when you can see how much you've
Yeah,
read and how much you have left.
exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of it's kind of like pros and cons between the two, but sometimes you just need take the plunge. I'm glad I did it. It is nice to have something that's small and I can take with me wherever I go, because books obviously are different sizes and different like lengths and thicknesses. So it's really nice that I know if I have this much space in my bag or with me, I can take it. So there's benefits to that as well. And I can have multiple books on there if I want. I never read more than one book at once, but
Yeah, some people like to read like 2 or 3 books at one time.
I can't.
No, I couldn't concentrate on different.
Well, I feel like I'm cheating. I feel like I'm cheating on the other books. I want to stick to one story and become invested in these characters and really focus on this. So, okay, well, today we're going to talk about book reviews in general. In this focus.
Talking about book preferences, language to describe the literature, and writing a book review.
Not so much writing today because we're online, but we'll talk about book reviews in general. Okay.
Oh.
I don't know why that. I don't know. I don't have that problem, Conchetta, personally.
Yeah.
I think because
it might be the physical act.
Yeah.
Of like turning the pages and everything. What would you say? Implants it into your brain.
Yeah. Registers.
Reinforces the memory.
Hey.
Go there.
Yeah, sorry. My Wi-Fi likes to but yeah, maybe it registers in your brain more with the physical, the tactile piece of it. I think there's something to be said too about like drawing, the act of digital drawing versus using a pencil and a paper or paint. It's a little different as far as the practice goes, but I'm sure there's studies about it somewhere.
Yeah, it might be because when you were young as well, you read paper books.
Yeah, ebooks are such a new invention.
Yeah,
and even still, we do use paper books quite a bit. Like ebooks haven't, or e-readers haven't taken over completely. We still have bookstores, we still have libraries, we still physically touch books all the time. So. That's interesting to think about. Okay, so Michael, what's your favorite type of book and why?
Favorite type of book?
So here we want to know like the genre or
the
genre or the category of book.
I used to read a lot of like fantasy books.
Yeah? Like what?
Like I read most of the Game of Thrones ones.
Really?
Yeah, when I was younger.
Oh, they're so long.
They're very long, yeah. so many characters.
I
gave up after like book 5 or something. But there's another book I used to read all the time, a book series about these like teenagers who had wings and they flew. I can't remember the name of it now. It was like 4 or 5 books and I read them all when I was like 16.
Interesting. I mean, maybe I've heard of it.
It was a similar genre. It was kind of fantasy, science fiction.
Yeah. I like, so we have Conchetta loves period romances. Very nice.
Wow.
There's a really popular period romance novel series that's now been created or turned into a television series. It's called Outlander. I don't know if you know it, Conchetta, but it's really good. I read the first
TV series,
Yeah, I read the first 5 books. The author, her name's Diana Gabaldon. She wrote them in the 90s, and they like kind of have come back around because of the TV series. It's a really great period romance with like some magic and some witchcraft and these kinds of things in there.
And it's like medieval times or?
It starts actually oh my God, what's it called? Is it called Jacobean? The Jacobean times in Scotland? Am I right? The Jacobites?
The Jacobites, yeah, they were English.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the Jacobites were the Scottish people, right? And it's during the Scottish, like the takeover, basically the colonization of Scotland from
Okay.
England. It starts there. And then, I don't know, there's a bunch of like time lapse. It's really cool. It's, yeah, because she goes back in time, basically. That's how the book starts. She like walks through these stones in Scotland.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it's like a little, but there's a lot of realistic elements. Ooh, you like Jane Austen? Okay, nice, classic literature lover.
I've read one Jane Austen book.
Yeah, which one?
Emma.
Oh, I've done. I don't think I've read a single Jane Austen book.
It was terrible.
Was it? I don't even know if
we read it in school. It was just. It was all very polite society and. Like,
yeah, that gets a little boring for me.
Yeah, they have like 2 conversations and then they're in love with each other.
Well, that's how it was, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know. I personally, I like a lot of different types of books. I'm not very particular. I tend to avoid fantasy novels or like, I don't like horror, but like, I do not like thrillers. I don't like scary books. No, thank you. I don't want to like read a scary book before bed and have nightmares.
I don't think I've ever read a scary book.
I mean, any Stephen King.
Yeah, I suppose Stephen King. When I was a child, there was like a children's series called Goosebumps.
Oh, I loved Goosebumps, though. Yeah, I loved Goosebumps. Those were good. They were scary, though.
At the time, yeah, I thought they were really scary.
Oh, they still are, honestly. They still are scary. I don't know. Well, let's talk about some other genres we have here. So we have the difference between fiction and nonfiction. I tend to read fiction books, sorry, because I have to read nonfiction books for studying all the time. So I like to escape.
I like reading some biographies and autobiographies, though.
Yeah, I've read a couple. More like memoirs.
All right.
Yeah, I like more memoirs, or just kind of.
So what's the difference between an autobiography and a memoir?
Well, an autobiography is a person writing about like their whole entire life. A memoir, I think, it's just like a piece of your life, or just talking about your life in general, or specific times in your life with no maybe real chronological order or no full purpose. Like I've read a few from comedians, kind of, or actresses, like Tina Fey. I read her. I don't know if it's an autobiography or a memoir, to be fair, but I read her book. And Mindy Kaling. It was good, actually. It's pretty funny. But it was also really interesting to see where she came from. Same thing with Mindy Kaling. I don't know if you know who she is. But.
Yeah, The Office, Mindy Project.
Yep. Good. Okay, Conchetta likes Anne Rice. Talk about vampires. Yeah, so that would be kind of like fantasy, but also maybe a bit of historical fiction, because I think she writes, I don't know, maybe crime fiction, because they do a bunch of bad stuff in those, like I forget the name. What is it? Queen of the Damned.
I don't know. I've never heard of Anne Rice.
They made it into a film. So, but anyway, so the fiction categories we have are romance novels, crime fiction, fantasy, the classics, sci-fi novels, horror, historical fiction, and a spy thriller. And so the only thing I want to clarify here is the classics are like classic literature, like Jane Austen,
Brontes.
Yeah. Who else?
Dickens.
Yeah, okay, there we go. Charles Dickens. Shakespeare is even considered some of his work.
Yeah.
Then we have the nonfiction.
Non-fictions. We have historical books, philosophy, science, arts, archaeology, biographies, autobiographies, and travel writing.
Yeah. So
The
basically
difference there-
anything.
Difference between biographies and autobiographies. Autobiography is written about yourself. A biography is where someone has written about someone else.
Yeah. And also, so basically the difference between nonfiction and fiction books is nonfiction always has facts and information and is normally checked. This information is normally verified in some way, especially before it is put to print. It is almost, there's normally resources and maybe people have reviewed it and there's been studies, something like this. It's nonfiction. Fiction is you can write whatever you want, really, which is fun. I think that's why I like it. I really like dystopian novels because they're fun to think about.
Like future dystopian.
Kind of, yeah, potentially like future or so. Well, I guess they all are future because they're not realities in this moment or in the past, so they would all be in the future.
There'll be alternate realities.
Exactly, alternate realities. Yeah, they're fun because they make you think. They make you think. Okay. So we have a quote here about the best writing.
So, the best moments in reading when you come across something, a thought, a feeling, a way of looking at things, which you had thought special and particular to you. And now here it is, set down by someone else, a person you have never met, someone who is long dead. And it is as if a hand has come out and taken yours. Alan Bennett, History Books.
Yeah. I don't know if anyone can correct me. I think this is a film. I know it's a film. I don't know if it's a book as well. But this is a great film if nobody has seen it. It's really it's really entertaining. It's basically the British version of the Dead Poets Society.
All right.
Okay. Yeah, it's basically kind of like that. But the reason we have this quote is because we want to know, for you, what makes a good read? What makes a book exceptional? And have you ever read a book which makes you feel that a hand has come out and taken yours?
Very poetic.
I know, it is quite poetic. So in the film, I believe he says this quote, and it's in a very dramatic moment. So I don't know, for you, what makes a good read, Michael?
Good read. It's an interesting story. Relatable characters. Someone you can see yourself in the story, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. I like when a fantasy novel has realistic elements to it as well.
Okay.
So it's some connection to the real world as well as fiction.
Yeah, depending on the genre.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I also like short chapters.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like to read one chapter at a time. So if I can get a chapter done, I feel like, oh, that was good.
Well, so that's more about format of a book, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's a person, whoever writes the book, that's the author's choice as to how they format it and how they break up the novel. I don't know.
What makes
for
a
me,
good read for you?
I think the characters are probably the main idea. for me. I like to be able to be invested and like feel something for these characters. And so if they're written well, then normally I can relate to them, or even if I don't relate to them, I can understand what they're going through in this story.
Mm.
All
Do you want
right.
to feel like you know the characters? Like,
Yeah, or I want to know their motivation, why they do stuff. I want to get in their heads. All right,
it can be
Conchetta
difficult to
says,
do.
yeah. A good read is something enjoyable, something you can read without putting too much effort in it.
Very good.
I can agree with that statement.
Yeah. Sometimes you're reading and you find, oh, half an hour is gone already.
Yeah, and sometimes depending on what you're reading about, or even if it's a fiction novel, you can, I don't know, you can find yourself having to look up a lot of information, or maybe there's a lot of words that you don't understand. Even honestly, even being a native speaker, I find this sometimes. If there's a lot of words, I have to continuously keep looking up because maybe they refer to something that I don't know about. Like, for example, I just read this book, The Pillars of the Earth, and it's about this one man in like the 1100s who wants to build a cathedral. And in the beginning, there was a lot of words I didn't understand because
like
they had,
old English.
yeah, well, not only that, but they were relating to building a church and a cathedral and like specific parts of an old cathedral that I had no idea about. So I had to look them up and figure out where they were located. But then after that, the author consistently used the same vocabulary for these same places. So it was easy, but in the beginning, it was a little difficult. Nice, Conchetta. So, second and the third question are related. An exceptional book is a book that takes you out of the reality you're living.
Good, yeah.
I think that's one of the reasons. Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons we read.
Yeah.
It's like one of the reasons we like to watch television as well. You know, we get to watch another piece of reality we're not in it. Or movies, like they take you away. But books, because it's such like a solitary experience.
So do you think it's easier to place yourself in a book rather than a TV show or a film?
Yeah. Because in the book, you imagine it yourself, the way things are. So it's like you are automatically, obviously there's descriptions and things are described for you, but you can create, like, for example, the characters. They might give you some idea of what they look like. Like, okay, she has dark curly hair, she's kind of tall, she's fat, whatever it might be. But I can still imagine what they look like. Yeah. So, and a TV show and film.
The same book and I picture the person, it would be different to what you have thought.
Exactly. We all have individual experiences with books because it's an individual action that we do. With TV, it's the visual part is done for you and you can experience it with someone else and you're both seeing and looking at the same thing. You might interpret it differently, but you're looking at the same thing.
Yeah, it's true.
Great, Conchetta. You can live the story side by side with the protagonist, and at the end of the book, you feel somehow empty. You miss the characters in the background.
That's nice.
I feel this sometimes when I finish a book.
And you're reading a book, it can take months maybe, and you have this character and this world in your head for that long, and then it's gone after.
Yeah, the book I was mentioning, The Pillars of the Earth, it's a 950-page book. So it took me quite a long time to get through it. I've been reading, I think it actually took me 3 or 4 months to read the whole thing. And when quarantine started, I finished it in like a day or 2. I sat down and read for like 3 hours.
And you didn't find the time like dragging or anything? You were like, this is fine.
I was
It's a good book,
determined
then.
though.
Mm.
Yeah, I wanted to finish it as well, because I wanted to start another book, but I have to finish it.
Yeah.
And it was getting good. It's really interesting, that book. I highly recommend it. If anyone, it's called The Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett. I think that's how you spell his name. But it's about, there's like 5 main characters, and so it switches between their stories all the time. And he's
And
a
it's
really
told
good,
from their perspective.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I think what makes his book exceptional is the way he stops with the story of one character and he leaves you without the information. He leaves you in a cliffhanger situation.
Yeah.
So he'll stop the story.
The Game of Thrones books are written in a similar way.
Yeah, they keep you
Yeah, like
hanging.
one character is their perspective, and then the next chapter is a different character.
Yep.
In a
And if
completely different way.
Yeah, something will happen at the end of one chapter, and you have to keep reading to get back to that character, so you find out what happened, and that's strategy for sure.
How many characters are you following through the book?
In The Pillars of the Earth, I think there's 5. I don't think it's that many.
Yeah.
I think there's 5 main characters. Okay, so we have some really great phrases talking about reading and books.
Couldn't put it down. I was hooked. It was a page turner. It was moving or gripping. It's a bestseller. It's on a true story. Avid reader.
Yeah. So these are super common phrases when we talk about books.
Yeah.
Especially, I couldn't put it down. I mean, I've said that phrase so many times in my life.
I've heard you say that phrase.
You have.
When you were talking about, I think, The Pillars of the Earth.
Yeah, no, it's the most recent book I read, and it was very. I was hooked.
You were hooked. It was gripping.
It was. Well, yeah, it was gripping and it was moving. Actually, I think I cried at one point, or I felt like I didn't cry, but I felt like this hurt in my chest. Like I felt so severely.
Worse than crying. Yeah.
Yeah. There's also like a really awful character, and I got so angry at him all the time. Like, honestly, my blood was boiling. I was like, how can this person exist? Like, it felt like I was there.
It's a sign of a good book. Yeah.
So it's a bestseller. Bestseller is kind of self-explanatory, but not all books are bestsellers.
No. There's in different countries, they have different lists. Usually a newspaper makes a list.
Mm-hmm.
In America, there's the New York Times.
Yep, they have a New York Times bestseller list.
Bestseller list.
Do you know what it is in the UK?
I think it could be just the Times.
Yeah, it's the London Times, right?
London Times.
And then in Ireland?
The Irish Times, I think.
Really? Yeah, so all the like kind of main newspapers for the country, it seems. There's also sometimes people, like famous people, put out their own bestseller list or their favorite books. And like, for example, Oprah in America, she has a whole list of books that she has like given her.
Yeah, she recommends every so often.
Yeah. Well, you can get like there's like an O for Oprah on your book if it's like one of Oprah's reads.
Yeah.
Yeah, if she puts it on her list, you can.
I'd say that's worth some amount of money.
Yeah, it's got to be.
You must instantly make sales.
Ooh, okay. So
good.
Literally, Conchetta, when we're talking about books, we turn the page. So if something is a page turner, it means it wants to keep you reading. You don't want to stop turning the pages.
Means you can't stop reading. You keep turning the page.
Yeah. So that's the
Similar
phrase.
to couldn't put it down.
Yeah. Yeah, because we use the phrase page, like to turn the page when we talk about books, which is a really interesting phrase in general, but.
Turn the page.
Yeah, if you think about it.
Page. Turn it.
I would think, I don't know, maybe it would be like flip the page might be more realistic because you flip it over, like, I don't know why we ended up with turn versus a different word. Okay, and then also we have an avid reader, which is nothing to do with the book, but it's about the person who's reading.
Would you say you are an avid reader, Lauren?
No, I wouldn't actually.
No?
No.
You read quite a lot, no?
I mean, avid. So an avid reader is someone who's like finishing a book a month. That's what I would say. Someone who really, really reads.
Someone who reads every day.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's like 30 minutes a day, an avid reader.
For me, yeah, I'd say that sounds like a lot.
Okay. I guess when you compare it to like someone who doesn't read a lot, maybe.
Yeah.
I would say an avid reader is someone you always find with their nose in a book. Like they read whenever they can. They always have a book with them. You like if you know someone, you're like, oh yeah, they're an avid reader, which means they just, you know them to be someone to read all the time. I don't think that's something to describe me personally. I'd like to get to that point, but no. Also, I feel like an avid reader is someone who knows a lot about books as well.
Yeah.
Like knows a lot of authors, who's read a lot of the classics, who has like a really vast and great knowledge about books in general.
So like reading is their hobby. It's all they do. Kind of.
Not all they do, but they just have like, they have this information about books. If that makes sense. Yeah. Like, for example, if we say here, like you and I can kind of name a couple of classics, but maybe an avid reader would say, oh, I can name 5 classic books right now, and I've probably read them all.
Yeah, I could name the authors, maybe one book each, but I haven't read any of them.
Yeah, right. Might not know the story even, right? Where an avid reader would probably have read it, or at least know the story, or know about it. It's an avid reader is kind of a big title, I think.
Not ready for it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, now we have a review about 1984 by George Orwell, which was written in 1948. I wonder if he did that on purpose.
I'd say so.
I just realized, I didn't know it was written in 1948. I just see that. It's the same numbers. But anyway, it's a futuristic fiction, or it's also in the category of a dystopian novel, which is the alternate reality. Okay, so this is someone else's review. I don't know who wrote this, but someone wrote it. I liked 1984 even better after a second reading. I thought it was a work of genius the first time and appreciated that genius even more the second time.
Orwell had a daunting task, creating a future nearly half a century away from his own time period. This future had to be its own complex, independent society, but it also had to be the natural end result of the dictatorships Orwell had witnessed firsthand, that is, the communist and socialist regimes of World War II.
That's part of the horror of 1984. This future is a recognizable one, even in 2010. It's easy to see how those who can control can, through manipulation and propaganda, maintain that control simply for the sake of satisfying their own hunger for power. It is both a cautionary tale and a social commentary.
1984 is one of those perfect novels that not only entertains, but also forces everyone to consider the dangers associated with giving any one person or entity too much power or control over our lives.
So it is a good review. So I'd like to ask our students, are there any vocabulary words or phrases here that you might not quite understand? So now we have a few more people watching.
If you are watching, feel free to introduce yourself in the comments. Let us know your name, where you're from.
Yeah. So anything, because there's a couple. But I think this is a really great review of the book.
Yeah, it tells us a lot about the book without spoiling the plot, without giving too much away.
Yeah, it does. No, it doesn't. It doesn't even tell you the characters.
Yeah.
It just tells you what the story accomplishes and why it was written. Okay, so cautionary. Cautionary. Go ahead.
It means to take caution. Not a good. To be careful.
Yeah. So this is the adjective form of the word.
That's
so
a
it's like
cautionary tale.
Yeah, which means it's basically telling you, it's giving you an example of what could happen, and therefore you shouldn't do it.
Yeah, it's like a warning.
Mm-hmm. When
also,
we
hello,
use it.
Fernando.
Yes. Okay, any other questions here?
Social commentary.
So,
what is social commentary, Lauren?
Social commentary is basically talking about our society and the way that it is, I guess you could say. The way that people behave, the way the government is, society in general, the way they behave. Yeah, anything else?
Has anyone read 1984? What did you think about it? Have you read it, Lauren?
Yeah,
no,
I've read
I haven't.
Oh, Michael.
I never, yeah. I know what it's about.
Good.
I know what happens.
But it's so good, honestly. Yeah. Especially, it's so amazing that it was written so long ago, and it's still, like, year after year is, like, continuously correct and, like, continuously applies to our lives. Okay, I highly recommend everybody read it either in Italian or in English if you can, but it is a really, really great book.
Is it long?
It's not, actually. It's not that long. I think
Maybe
a couple hundred pages.
That's
it's
doable.
Not. Yeah, it's not anything. It's definitely less than 400 pages.
Okay.
So I don't know exactly, but it's less than 400. It's not a very long book.
I've read Animal Farm, and it's quite short as well.
Yeah, it's amazing that, like, books really don't need to be very long to have a great impact.
Yeah. Once the story is good.
Yeah. Basically. Yeah, especially with everyone having a bit more time at home, I recommend reading this book. It'll bring you outside of this current reality into another one, and it will definitely make you think about our current reality as well.
It's probably very relevant now.
It's relevant. It's honestly, I'm
government lockdown.
I know. I am. Yeah. Well, the fact that we need papers to go outside. That's literally part of this book. You need permission to go outside. You're not supposed to be out. You have a curfew. And granted, we don't have a curfew here right now. But if we leave and the shops aren't open, there's no reason for us to be outside, basically.
That's true.
Unless you're going to work.
Different reasons, I think, though, for now and in the book.
Oh, of course.
Now
Of course. But it's just amazing that you can still draw the same experiences. Yeah. Yeah, it's a bit wild. Okay. So we have some useful phrases in this. This is talking about 1984 still. But when we're writing a review, or even when we're talking about a review to someone else, we can use, or not talking about a review, I'm sorry, talking about a novel to someone else, we can use these phrases to explain the book.
The central character or main protagonist is Winston Smith. Orwell immerses himself in the story's futuristic world. 1984 is an entertaining and poignant read. Orwell draws out the reader's sympathy for the hopeless relationship between Winston and Julia. Characters are three-dimensional, rounded, well-developed. Winston and Julia have their weaknesses, although there is nothing wrong with a flawed protagonist. It gave me the impression that the ending was devoid of hope and tragic. An important running theme, or leitmotif throughout the book, is the idea of double-think.
It's a
sounds French.
Leitmotif. I just had to look up the pronunciation because I've never seen that word actually. Okay, so let's talk about. Yeah, I would use running theme over the other. But we have a couple, so let's go through these a bit. So for the first, central character or main protagonist, we also have another word that actually kind of uses two of these words together, which is the main character.
The protagonist, main character.
Yeah. So central character, main protagonist, or main character, which is kind of a bit of both there. And this is obviously the person you see the most in the book. Because
sometimes
this book
it's written from their point of view or from their perspective. Yeah. Sometimes from the authors or third person looking at them.
Yeah, and you can have more than one main character as well. Good. Okay, so Orwell immerses himself into the story of a futuristic world. So to immerse.
To completely surround. Oh, the Italian, we use the word leitmotif.
I guess that's why we don't know it. Yeah, so to immerse yourself is to like submerge, basically, to be in it.
Yeah, completely surround yourself with this world, to let it take over.
Yeah. 1984 is an interesting and poignant read.
Good word, poignant.
Yeah. So poignant means like it gives you this feeling of kind of sadness or tragedy a bit.
It makes you think.
Yeah.
Poignant, significant.
Yeah. Good to know. Look, our students are teaching us today. It's great. I love it when that happens.
Very good.
Yeah. Okay, draws out the reader's sympathy.
Your sympathy is your empathy, your feeling sorry for someone. So in this case, it's the relationship between Winston and Julia.
Yeah, sympathy isn't always feeling sorry. It's also you just feel the same emotion.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a little
And
different Italian. I'm sure you guys at this level probably know that by now. But yeah, not sympathetic is not like nice. It means you just feel the same emotion as someone else. Okay. Then we have three-dimensional, rounded, or well-developed.
it's just different aspects to the characters. Three-dimensional, they're like real people. So they have, would you say, contrasting emotions and contrasting personalities.
Yeah, exactly. And if they're well developed, you like understand their motivations for doing things. You can kind of think the way the character thinks, because the character has been developed in such a way by the author that you can start to create that in your own mind and start to imagine it. We also use the phrase well-rounded in general. We can call a person a well-rounded person.
It means they have like different things going on in their life. They're well-rounded. They usually have, if they're level-headed, they have a good job. They're different things, different interests in their life.
Yeah, exactly. You're not just focused on a singular thing. You're a well-rounded. You kind of, what's the phrase, Michael, about hats?
You wear many different hats.
Thank you. Yeah, you wear many different hats. I was thinking of dipping. There's something else about dipping as well. Another phrase. You dip into
in different quill. You dip your quill feather in different
inks. So strange.
Yeah, writing with a feather with a quill.
Yeah, exactly. Back in the day. Okay. Then we have there's nothing wrong with a flawed protagonist. So someone who's flawed obviously means they have some problems, like their motivation, I don't know. Their motivation could be bad. They could be greedy.
They become very popular in like TV shows or anti-hero.
Yeah.
Like Sopranos,
well, there's also
Breaking Bad.
Yeah. Well, they do this in novels a lot too.
Yeah.
Like they make you feel bad for the character in order to justify their behavior.
Yeah. Like you feel sorry when these criminals have been arrested in this.
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy how that happens, isn't it? And then it gave me the impression.
It made me feel, made me think like this certain way.
Yeah. So just like people can give first impressions to other people, a book, a novel, a TV show, a painting, a picture, any of these things can give you an impression, makes you feel or think a certain way. And then we talked about running theme or le motif. I looked up the pronunciation. I think it's le motif because that's
Emotive.
Yeah,
it looks
and it
French.
makes sense. Yeah.
French
well, motif.
Yeah.
And motif is French anyway.
Yeah, I've heard of motif before.
Yeah. Le motif. I don't know. I can kind of speak French sometimes.
I can. I studied French in school. I can't speak.
Seriously?
I did it in secondary school.
Shame, Michael. Shame.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we go, does anybody have any questions for us? We got one right as I asked it.
Devoid. Oh, yes.
So devoid literally means without.
Yeah.
So it's like void. The void is like nothing, right? A void is nothing. So devoid is the adjective, which means without.
And we say devoid of hope.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it is without hope.
Yeah. So without something. It's devoid of happiness.
Yeah.
It's devoid of, I don't know, I could technically say like my refrigerator is devoid of alcohol.
That'd be a bit weird, yeah.
I know.
I'd say like a very dark grey building is devoid of life or devoid of color.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no problem, Conchetta. Okay, but that's the end of our little
Out of
webinar
time.
today. Yeah, but thank you all for coming and
Thanks very much
contributing.
for watching, guys, and commenting.
I hope you read some books.
Yes.
use the time, I guess. We have it, so, or at least we have a little more of it. So read some books. All right. Thanks,
I will do
everyone.
that. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye. See you
See
soon.
you.